Okay, we are back. Finally. Those YouTube videos took forever to process. To give you an idea of how long it took for them to process, the video that aired at 9 today just finished processing. So that's something to keep an eye on. I really need to get ahead of the curve on these videos, but the processing takes forever. Specifically, it's the YouTube portion of the processing. I uploaded the rest of the videos except for like one of them, which is going to air in 10 hours. All of the other videos finished processing about 10 hours ago. I started 11 hours ago. They just take forever to process. Anyways, last time I mentioned my D&D character, my first D&D character, and my original GM, whose name was Steve. Steve is a wonderful guy. Steve is, or was, I'm not sure if he's still alive even, but if he is, he's a wonderful guy. He's great. Really one of the sweetest people I've ever met. He's very calm, cool, and collected. Doesn't get very befuddled or distracted or anything of that sort. Instead, he seems to be more adept at interpersonal reaction. He seems skilled at talking to people, basically. I'm aware I could have used the minecart to run this entire path over, but Basically, I just wanted to be on this end when I started because I'm going to end up stepping in those pitfalls as I dig through. So I'm going to end up wanting to be able to fill in the pitfalls as I approach them. And for that, I need to have a ready supply of pumpkins. But in order to do that, I need to mine out some of these ones in the upper row first, because I don't feel like going through all the trouble of going back up to base to harvest more pumpkins, which I know are not ready yet. You know, that pumpkin farm has been running for a very long time. The pumpkin farm is still nowhere near done for what I need, for what quantities of pumpkins I need it for. I just need more pumpkins, you know? I need to shove more torches and more pumpkins because otherwise, you know, it's gonna just be a problem. Because otherwise I'll open up a water source somewhere and then I'll end up having all my torches wash away, and that's not very good. But that's not what I said we'd talk about this episode. I said we would talk about my first character. Her name was Dragonis, and she surprised everyone at the table, except for me. I was the one controlling her, and I was just like, oh, cool, you know? Because that's just the type of person I am. I'm just the type where it's just like, oh, okay, that's nice. What does that mean? I'm a little bit dense in that area, but it's fine. because it means that I get to have all of the most awesome interactions as I stumble through basically every scenario in some form of Mr. Bean-esque Rube Goldberg machine type of scenario where I just end up fighting against all kinds of different shenanigans, while having my own shenanigans, of course, unfurl and ensue. Some people, for example, would do a caravan quest, and they'd be like, oh, well, bandits show up. Okay, how do we know they're bandits? You know? All we know is there's a bunch of bad guys in the middle of the road sitting there who might not even be bad guys. You know, there's just a bunch of guys standing in the middle of the road. And so everyone gets ready to attack, and it's like, wait. How do we know these are the bad guys? Maybe these are the good guys. Did anybody ask them? You know, let's give them a chance to speak. And then they're like, you know, throw all your weapons on the ground and no one gets hurt. And it's like, oh, see, they are bad guys. All right, let's murderize them. It's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, I mean, we're the caravan guards, so it's what we do. So we just murderize the bad guys. But, you know, a lot of people don't really go through the whole trouble of actually role-playing that out. And that's kind of a sad thing. More people should do actual roleplay where they actually, like, discuss all of the things that the characters are doing. I'm gonna want this whole diorite line, aren't I? Oh my. Okay. Well, I suppose I'll just start here. Since I'm mining from above, whenever a block pops off that shouldn't have popped in that direction, I can just take a step forward, pick it up. Okay. So, in my first campaign, we were designated with a basic quest. Wanted, dead or alive, bunch of money, wanted for questioning type of situation, where this woman was supposed to find themselves getting questioned by some grand court or something. I don't really know the details. We didn't get that far into the campaign, sadly. I do, however, really want to get back to that campaign because my character is most likely still alive. Even in that setting. My character has this tendency to just be absolutely unkillable whenever I play D&D. Specifically this character, because she just never dies. Like, she'll get downed. She'll go down to 0 HP like 7 times in a single fight. But she just doesn't die. And keep in mind, that's 7 times in a single fight without any healing. Nobody heals her. She just gets back up on her own. And then continues the fight. And it's like, oh my god, why won't you stay down? It's like, because I'm the Juggernaut. It's like, you're not the Juggernaut. Okay, I'm the Sorcerer. She's a Shadow Sorcerer in 5th edition. However, in the earlier editions, specifically in the 3.5 edition, Dragonis was her name. She was a dark mage. So she couldn't really perform, well, she could perform healing spells. She couldn't really learn healing spells. She was, however, good at completely blowing things apart. So she would, of course, go through her spell slots like it was absolutely nothing, but she would always look very badass, very intimidating. Not necessarily on purpose. She just had that tendency where it's just like, oh my god, that's the most awesome thing ever. It's like, what? Oh, yeah, I guess it is. It's like, wait, you weren't even trying to be badass? No, I wasn't. I was just being me. It's like, wow, okay. Note to self, don't mess with Dragonis. It's like, why? Dragonis loves everyone. It's like, yeah, I know. She's a regular bard. But at the same time, Dragonis is very difficult to kill. Always has been, always will be. I ended up actually utilizing that character later in a roleplay server where she just became even more unkillable. But that was after I upgraded her to the 3.5 version because some lunatic GM decided to say, hey, make a character at level 100. And it's like, how am I going to make a character that overpowered? And so I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I realized, wait a minute, I already have a character that's so overpowered they could reach level 100. It's totally plausible. I already have the backstory. You know, I have Dragonis, the sorcerer. She's a shadow sorcerer, an Eladrin shadow sorcerer. So she has the Fey step, which is always nice. Being able to teleport away from your enemies as a sorcerer is the best. It really is. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Because you do not want your enemies to sit there going, haha, you're weak, I'm going to grapple you. So instead you just teleport away and you're just like, yeah, teleport that. Or grapple that. You're grabbing mist. And then because she's an elf, of course, if I, well, originally I had her as a wood elf. This was before the Eladrin errata became more official than just an alternate elf. So originally she was a wood elf, and so she would use Misty Step instead of the Eladrin teleport, which, by the way, Misty Step, very overpowered. I love it. I love it. But the Eladrin bloodline just makes it stronger, so that's good. But yeah, the Eladrin elf, originally she was a wood elf. Growing up in the forest, she was very young for her age. Specifically, she was 18 in human years. By which I mean she was 18. She was an 18-year-old elf, which for an elf is ridiculously young. But at the same time, she was physically mature. She just didn't have the worldly knowledge which set her apart from her elders. So she, of course, had to go out on an adventure and, you know, gain worldly knowledge. She had to learn how the world worked and everything. So she decided to, you know, set out because A, she was a sorcerer, of the Grave Domain. Originally, in the 3.5 edition, what it was is she had done something stupid growing up, and she ended up meeting Hades, and Hades, being his usual chaotic self, decided, I like you. I think you're interesting. You might prove entertaining. And I should probably note, eternity is a long time to live. So, I'm going to let you live on the condition that you just prove entertaining. Entertain me, mortal. I'll let you live. And it's like, okay, I suppose that's one way to strike a deal with the devil, in a manner of speaking. The deal went off smoothly. However, the process by which everything happened, of course, got quite chaotic. Obviously. She's a shadow sorcerer, so she quite obviously had a lot of chaos going on in her life, because shadow sorcerer just kind of, it's a thing. It's a problematic thing. But at the same time, she was quite skilled in combat. She could quite easily hold her own, simply by virtue of just not dying. Like, yeah, she'd take a hit, and yeah, it would hurt, and yeah, she'd drop down to 0, and then she'd get back up, and she'd be like, that all you got? My first lover hit harder than that. It's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah. You know? So she was interesting. She was very fun to play. She definitely had her quirks, obviously. She had her strangeness. She had her personality traits, which definitely set her apart from a lot of people. But she was a real sweetie, a real sweetheart. She loved taking care of people and watching after people. So when the party, for example, would need to go on a quest to, for example, kill a dragon, she was like, well, A, I'm not really interested in going dragon slaying again. B, I met that dragon. We told him we'd play nice and that he would be fine, and, it's fine. I'll just stay here and drink. She was a real barfly type, where she would just sit at the bar and she would just enjoy letting people buy her drinks. She didn't buy drinks herself, mind you. That was part of her charm, hence the comment earlier of she was a real bard. She would hang out at the bar and just wait for people to buy her drinks, and her big issue, her big problem that she would always have is that she had this tendency where she would she would let people buy her a drink, and then she would take them to bed. And of course, elves don't need to sleep, so she would sleep specifically with people who were not elves, people who needed their sleep. And she would instead, of course, do her trance after, sneaking away with all of their money, because she would sleep with them and then they'd fall asleep, and then she would just take their money because she doesn't need sleep. Yeah, she'd be tired, but she's able to just go and find another room somewhere where she can just meditate for 4 hours. Meanwhile, she's still got another 4 hours that she can sneak away. She can count the money. She can do all this other stuff. And so she was very adept at getting into trouble. And yet she was also quite the escape artist because of it. Because she would just consistently find some way to just get into trouble. It was her habit. She'd hang out at the bar, someone would buy her a drink, she'd take them back to the room, they'd have their fun, and then she'd, rob them blind while they're asleep. And of course, her flaws involve being, for example, if someone were to just be like, oh, I can go for another couple of rounds, she'd just be like, oh, you can? I didn't plan for that. If she had a plan, if, for example, the person that she found herself with had a significant other, she would decide to slip out the window. And she started with Featherfall because she would slip out the window, usually a second floor window, where she would just leap out the window, cast Featherfall on herself, drift down to the ground, and then she would cast Expeditious Retreat on herself, and she would just run full sprint into the distance and never be found again because she's an elf, so she has 35 speed, plus the Expeditious Retreat, plus the fact that she's dashing, means that they're never going to catch up to her unless they're an elf with Expeditious Retreat, or unless they have haste or are tabaxi. Those were her real weaknesses, was tabaxis, people with haste, which would definitely mean they were a higher level than her starting out, of course. But yeah, so my friend told me, make a level 100 character, and I'm thinking, where am I going to get a level 100 character? I remember Dragonis, and it's like, oh, right, Dragonis. I have her. So I go ahead and I update her sheet to the proper level, fill in all the data. I go through all of the different steps to get her character all situated, and then I find out that the DM has no idea how to balance anything because they were used to roleplay servers, so they weren't really expecting the casualties that ensued from having a bunch of players that are level 100. To put it simply, here's the first few things that occurred in that campaign, in the level 100 campaign. We managed to kill off a few 100,000 people for a blood magic enchantment that was used to fortify a golem type construct that was being used as some form of power armor for a character that was essentially an artificer to the extreme, to the point where they had replaced almost every part of their body with some form of mechanical, some form of weaponized mechanical device that allows them to basically entirely not need to worry about anything ever again. That one was, of course, played by my friend Kyle, who I keep mentioning. That was his character, Stran. She was a half... she was a half arachnid, half scorpion, half-breed. So she was half human, quarter scorpion, quarter spider. So she ended up being this creature with like 6 arms, and she had a venomous tail that couldn't really do much, but she had it, and we rarely got to use that tail in any of the campaigns, but we definitely had a lot of fun with his character, simply by virtue of his character being just as chaotic as mine. It really was. It was great fun. It was chaos, but it was great fun. So his character was basically a chaotic twin compared to mine. He also played a female character, but I didn't meet Kyle until much later. My original campaign, which is what I'm supposed to be talking about, I have to keep reminding myself what the topic is supposed to be. But my original character format of Dragonus, the original form of Dragonus was an elf. She was very young for her age, or for her race. She did not know pretty much anything about the way the world worked, so she had to go and learn how the world worked, which was, of course, a little bit problematic at times, simply by virtue of needing to learn how the world works. She found herself in many different situations where, like, anyone who's an experienced adventurer would know that, but she wasn't an experienced adventurer. She was an adventurer, but she was not experienced. Which was a great character model for me to play as. I'm sure Steve loved that about her, because she was just this bumbling idiot who also happened to be an overpowered god-tier death machine. Yet she was so fragile that when she got into a fist fight, if she held back, she would most definitely lose. To the point where she's got to wonder, is this like, are we playing for keeps, or are we just beating each other up here? And she had a very vibrant personality, mostly because she was just exasperated by everything. It's like, oh my god, the world is this weird, chaotic place. You know, what am I ever going to do? She definitely learned fast, but she learned in a way that made people worry how she was going to turn out. Because no one really knew, not even her, how she would end up turning out. No one really could predict how she would react to anything, because she was just so much of a wild card that nothing you could really do could prepare you for just meeting her. She was just this event that happens to you, and it was amazing. It was glorious. She ended up going, she left her home village in the forest, and she ended up going to this mountain town where she approached the tavern, but on her way to the tavern, she caught sight of a messenger, and she was like, "Oh, well, I can hear what the messenger has to say before I go drinking, before I lure in some unsuspecting victim with my seductive feminine wiles." I know a lot of you might not believe that I have the ability to play a female character. I know a lot of people don't play female characters very well. They probably don't think about how a female character would get played. However, I would like to point out I do have a falsetto voice that I am able to use. I just don't frequently use it. Now, seeing as we are quickly approaching episode 100, I would like to challenge my viewers to see if we can get this video to... I'll set a nice low number. Let's see if we can get just 10 likes on one video and see if we can get those 10 likes. I will go ahead and I will perform the falsetto voice on the recording here on camera. And you will be able to hear how interesting such a situation might sound when the GM asks when the GM tells me that they will only let me play a female character if I can actually play a female character. Needless to say, I shocked the whole room because my voice has not changed in over 20 years. Okay? I still sound the same way I sounded when I started playing Dragonus. However, when I did Dragonus' voice, first off, I have no idea why, but every time I try and do Dragonus' voice, I swear she sounds exactly like Tracer from Overwatch. She sounds like Tracer. Okay, if you really want just some random voice sample that you can imagine as how she sounds, imagine Tracer talking. But for some reason, it's just impeccable. Like, it really does sound like Tracer. To a surprisingly startling degree, because, well, you can hear the deep bass undertones of my voice as I perform my James Earl Jones impressions. So for that to become Tracer sounds startling. But it does, it's the strangest thing, but yeah, I can straight up sound like Tracer. I had to build a little bridge here because I got tired of jumping across. The various aspects of trying to sound that feminine, it does take its toll on your vocal cords. However, not in the way that you would expect sounding feminine would take its toll. You have to keep in mind that the softer your voice is, the more loose your vocal cords need to be. So if you want a real effeminate voice, you need to relax your throat. If you want a you need to tighten your throat. If you want a deep sounding voice, you need to relax your throat. So right now, my throat is extremely relaxed. I have this deep bass voice where I am capable of enunciating and projecting my voice very clearly. But that's only because my throat is so relaxed that I'm able to just, let my voice do whatever I want. However, if I wanted to have a softer voice, I would need to tighten my vocal cords up, and I would need to focus on having my voice soften. I wouldn't want as much vibration in my throat, so I would need to focus on that. But that's why I'm so adept at altering my voice. In case you ever wanted some advice on speech therapy, that's the secret. The properties of manipulating one's voice is definitely useful when trying to roleplay a character. It allows you to really get into character because you're able to better represent how your character's emotional response is when you're able to actually utilize your voice for your character. The properties of emotional expression through the use of voice is definitely a very useful technique when trying to roleplay. However, I believe a more adept technique would involve making use of expressive communication. You want to be able to speak your intentions clearly. If you can't speak your intentions clearly, you're not going to find yourself very well understood, obviously. So you want to make sure that you, of course, are, well, understood. No, not like that. Like that. I don't really want 42 of them, but I suppose I'll make... Oh, right. I forgot. Times 3. Not times 2. But yeah, I'll make like half a stack of like polished granite slabs. I need to fill in this roof, and I don't really remember how much more material I needed. So I'm just kind of filling it in as I go. As you can see, the mine is definitely getting pieced together nicely. My battery saver was already on. I shall need to fix that shortly. Yeah, my battery saver was set to extreme. Now it's just set to on. That's just going to drain the battery faster. How far away from the wall am I? Another half a stack, maybe. Yeah, about a half a stack. That's what it feels like. Anyway, so my character was very adept at getting into trouble, very adept at getting out of trouble. She still is very adept at getting out of trouble and getting into trouble as well. However, she seems much calmer these days, simply because she's gotten some experience on her where she's, able to understand how things operate. She's able to comprehend how things can frustrate people. And so she's able to, of course, better relate to the situation, as she has now, she's gained her worldly experience. Of course, by now she's an undead lich, but in order to get to that point, she had to survive a bunch of adventures first. And keep in mind, she was saved by Hades, so the fact that Hades spared someone who then went on to become a lich simply because they didn't think that they had enough time to do everything that they needed. They wanted more time, so they became a lich. Simple enough concept, really. So yeah, she didn't think she had enough time for doing everything she wanted, so she made herself quite literally immortal. In her starting days, she overheard the town crier. She investigated, what's this all about? Something about wanted dead or alive, blah, blah, blah. And so she wanted to find out what that was about. She found out it was worth a bunch of money, and suddenly, you've got her attention. I'm going to make how much money on this? What do I need to do? Do you need me to model or something? No, just bring this person back dead or alive. Okay, I can do that. And so she decided to take up this quest. I am so looking forward to that update where I can just craft an entire stack just by going like that. And all I gotta do is just hold it. It's like, just hold it? Yeah, just hold it. Instead, I have this lovely noise maker. Yes, it's quite noisy. That's the stone cutter, of course, doing what it does best, cutting stone. So yeah, Dragonis went, okay, so I just bring this person back, dead or alive, and I get a bunch of money. Sounds totally fair, I don't even have to bring him back alive. You really can't win, or you really can't lose with that kind of an offer. They don't even need to be alive. Deal. That's what's called a win-win situation. If they piss you off, well, you just need to bring them back. They don't need to be alive. So, she agreed to join the group and help hunt down this person, some chick that she knew absolutely nothing about. She'd never heard of this person before. However, she was not alone in the group of adventurers who agreed to hunt this person down. However, the money was enough that even if everyone survived, they could still live comfortably, all of them, just off of the royalties of the money. Like, they could easily live comfortably for a good couple hundred years. on that much money, which is great, you know. She's out there adventuring. She's got like 10 gold to her name, and she hears about this bounty for someone wanted dead or alive for like, 10,000 gold, split 10 ways. That's still 1,000 gold apiece. That's great, you know. So she was on board with that, but then like she started of course adventuring with them, and so she was like, okay, well, I'm going to introduce myself to this party and just kind of force my way into the party by means of inviting myself. So she catches up with one of the members of the party who had a permanent lycanthrope form. And she just kind of clung to them and pretended to know them, and they were just like, who is this strange woman? Why is she clinging to me? But that's just how she worked. She was shy, she was new, she didn't know anyone, you know. So she just invited herself, and it worked. She ended up getting along very nicely with the party. They liked her a lot. They thought she was very strange. She was a very strange person. However, she was also very skilled. She was very useful. But they didn't know that yet. Instead, what ended up happening is she ended up traveling to the mountains with them on horseback. Now, I mentioned that she paired up with a werewolf, a lycanthrope party member, and that's kind of important because it's very relevant to note that she has like almost no idea how the world works, meaning she is missing a lot of common sense on certain topics, such as knowing when it's mating season for werewolves. She ended up finding out about that, though, specifically about the pheromones, as they weren't like wanting to mate with her, they were wanting their mate, but their mate was back at home or just elsewhere in general. So she ended up learning about that, and then they were like, wow, that was amazing. I should definitely take you horseback riding more often. It's like, yeah. That's okay. Okay, that's interesting. And then they found this cave, and there was some mysterious writing, and two of the party members could read it, but no one else could read it. And so, they just kind of nudged each other or like glanced at each other like, yeah, I can read this, and you can read this. We both know we can read this because, they were monks, and they just shared the same monastery. So they could both read it, but none of the other party members knew what it said. And so we were just standing around looking at each other going, well, what do we do now? We got this cave, we're hunting for this lady. We know the trail led up here, but we lost the trail. So what do we do now? What's next? Do we explore this cave, make sure she's not in the cave, risk it might possibly be an ambush? We had no intel on what this person could possibly be capable of. We just didn't know any better, So we had to make a decision. We ultimately decided we wanted to explore the cave. We decided that we wanted to have some people wait outside the cave, have some people go in, which, as everyone that plays D&D obviously knows, is a very stupid idea, because that means that the first thing we're doing is splitting the party, which is a bad idea. It's always a bad idea to split the party, okay? I know some people might think, oh, but it's fine. Everything will be fine. It's like, no, it won't be fine. Watch. And sure enough, it was not fine. But they didn't know that at the time. So, half the party goes in, half the party stays out. So right away, things are looking great for our life expectancy, as you can tell. You know, I'm sure the GM was loving that he was going to be able to wipe out half the party without us being able to get help from the other half, because the other half was waiting outside the cave, making sure we didn't get flanked, making sure we didn't get ambushed, making sure we weren't walking into a trap. You know, we wanted some survivors to be able to say, hey, you know, we were tracking her, we lost her. We lost a lot of things, including half the party. But no, instead, what happened is we were tracking her, and we found her, and then we went into the cave because we were trying to catch up to her still. We did find her eventually, but not in the cave. Going in the cave was a mistake, to put it mildly. We walk in the cave, and the cave has no light sources, so we're stuck with either dark vision or just being blind. You know, but fortunately the majority of us had dark vision. Some of us had a torch or two, but for the most part we were just blind. You know, we figured, okay, it's a cave. How bad could it be, right? Boy, were we wrong. So we go into this cave, and the first thing we realize is this cave is dark. Second thing we realize is the cave splits off into two paths. There's a path to the left and a path to the right. I chose the path to the left. I was the only one who chose the path to the left. Everyone else chose the path